very comfortable for us to all sit back and say, here in Tennessee we don't have child abuse, especially not child sex abuse.
We have investigators in every county in the state that deal with this every single day. Many of the cases we're involved with, it's a family member, a relative, a caretaker, someone very close to the child.
I think it's very hard for the general lay community to wrap their arms around the issue that anyone would behave inappropriately with a child. I can't imagine it as a parent what it would be like to not know where to go and who to turn to.
This is a safe place to come to and get information and get help.
The local community child advocacy center serves as a hub, if you will, of services when there are allegations of child abuse or neglect and a need for an investigation.
The advocacy centers provide a safe and comfortable place for the children to come. As opposed to some stark police station, it's a home for a multidisciplinary team. It's an enormous improvement over what we had years ago.
You had different agencies such as Law Enforcement Department, Children's Services, District Attorney's Office, and they would go out and work the cases, but there wasn't any communication between any of the elements involved.
Oftentimes it meant multiple interviews for the children, it meant multiple interviews for the family.
The importance of the team approach to the child just can't be overstated. It reduces the number of different people that a child may have to tell the story to.
It's our belief that children shouldn't have to talk about traumatic events in their lives over and over again with different professionals.
This way, we best serve the victim and we best serve the community at large.
It's just really hard to imagine how that child's life changes the minute a disclosure is made. That child really begins a journey. Good morning, everyone. Let's get started with the Child Protective Investigative Team meeting. I believe the first case on our docket is Susan Martin. Dawn, would you like to start?
I received this case on August 1st. The child's name is Susan Martin. She's 10 years old.
Susan, you didn't go out with the rest of the kids. Are you okay? No. You know, I've been worried about you.
Susan's teacher noticed that she wasn't interacting with other children at school and wasn't being herself.
What's going on, Susan?
My stepdad has been touching my private areas.
At that point, I made contact with the child at the school, and then I contacted Detective M. Hoff, and we scheduled a forensic interview for that afternoon.
A forensic interview is a developmentally sensitive process for gathering information from a child.
Well, Susan, I want you to know that this is a safe place to talk. You don't have to be scared or afraid to talk in here.
You're looking for legally relevant information. It's not about helping them understand and process the experiences that they have had. The purpose of the interview is really to gather facts about what may have occurred to the child.
Tell me what you know about coming here today.
Well, I know it's because my stepdad did something he wasn't supposed to. I don't want anybody to touch me anywhere.
The interview is observed by other team members on the Child Protective Investigative Team. Usually it's the Child Protective Services investigator who works for the Department of Children's Services and a law enforcement representative.
I've only told one other person.
Who did you tell?
My teacher.
Your teacher? Okay.
You want to be armed with as much information as you possibly can. It's hard to interview a suspect without really knowing what the allegations are.
He came into my room and I was just sort of sitting on my bed and he told me that I was pretty. He touched me here.
Is it hard to talk about?
Having Having DCS present at the forensic interview is very important. Typically we're assessing safety, and if a safety issue comes up, then DCS needs to be there to determine what measures may or may not need to be put into place to ensure that child's safety.
The third time, he said, you know, you can't tell anybody this or I'll kill your dog and your mom's gonna hate you forever.
You said he reached into your underwear and touched on your skin. When he touched there, was that just one time or more than one time?
3 times.
It ends up providing often a roadmap for what happens next in terms of the things that need to be corroborated, the things that suspects will be questioned about. The details are the things that allow law enforcement to investigate and prove their cases.
What about counseling? Are we scheduled counseling for her yet?
She's actually scheduled to start with me next week.
We really like the notion that the CAC is seen as a medium to come to help the child, not only for the interview, but then the aftermath of the interview, to deal with the psychological and emotional needs that this family and this child might have.
Ms. Martin, thanks so much for coming, and I'm so glad that you and Susan are going to be starting this process with us. Therapy is important for children who've experienced a traumatic event because it allows them a safe place to really process through what they've experienced. We do have assessments that family and the child that we're seeing, depending on how old they are, would be able to take. That's our initial jumping off point before we get into the therapeutic process. And then towards the end of therapy, we're gonna use that same assessment again. What you want is to see some change in those scores, and that's a really concrete way to see if what we're doing is helping. Before you can touch trauma work, you have to be sure that the child understands how to relax and cope with certain feelings. Ready? Breathe in. Push your belly up. Good. And breathe out. Let your belly sink. Very nice job. That was excellent. We want to be sure that they have a good understanding of what relaxation is supposed to feel like. We certainly do in therapy try to assist the child in coming to terms with the fact that they did not hold the responsibility in the abuse happening. But then we really want to be sure to help them redirect that responsibility to the adult who was the one who made the choice to do the abusing. It may look as though when they did the right thing by telling in order to help keep themselves safe, that everything fell apart around them. Things changed because your stepdad made a bad choice and committed a crime when he sexually abused you. What we hope is that the child and family are able to look at the abuse as a piece of their story. It does not have to define who they are, and it does not have to dictate how they live their life.
An additional benefit that many child advocacy centers have is to get the child familiar with what it's like to be in the criminal justice system, in the court system. I mean, we're here today in a courtroom that is typical of those across the state, where there are going to be lawyers, there's going to be a judge, there's going to be a jury. That's all a very stressful and sometimes traumatic situation for children, young children, to get used to.
Helping them at the end of that piece of the journey to deal with whatever a judge might rule. All of those are opportunities for the Child Advocacy Center to be there for that child.
Having a Child Advocacy Center really leaves us with a sense that there's someone there still focused on that family. Someone is still wrapped around them, caring for them and making sure that this child is safe and that this family is going to heal from this experience.